Leadership is often viewed through the lens of power, control, and authority. But true leadership goes far deeper than that. It's not just about the ability to make decisions or delegate tasks, it's about mastering yourself, serving others, and leaving a legacy that transcends anyone, individual, or title. In today's conversation, we're diving into the unmissable truths about leadership, the things that you need to understand. Whether you're leading in business, your family, your community, or even in your personal spiritual life, these truths are universal. We'll explore how inner mastery shapes outward leadership, why vulnerability is a strength, and why leadership is not defined by success, but by how we handle failure. Through real world examples and scenarios, we'll challenge some of the most common misconceptions about leadership and get to the heart of what it truly means to lead holistically mind, body, and spirit. So, if you're ready to rethink leadership in a way that will not only change how you lead, but also transform how you live, this discussion is for you. Let's uncover the profound, often jaw dropping truths that every aspiring leader needs to know. So that said, bro, I mean, I know that both of us are certified coaches and trainer, speaker, coaches, and trainer by the John Maxwell team, and a lot of our background when it comes down to leadership is very similar. We both spent time in the military and things of that nature. Did the John Maxwell thing, and we're kind of operating under um, the learned lessons from those arenas. You work a lot in the school system. I work a lot in the government school system. So again, it's a lot of similarities in what we tend to talk about. And so as we go through this conversation, I want everybody who is listening, you're going to get 5 key points, and they're going to be spelled out clearly. And so for my brother, the first point we're going to bring to the table is leadership begins with inner mastery, not external control. Now, I know for a fact, because you was in the military, I know you've seen it the other way around. We may have even done it from the other side of this as well. And we have several leaders to where they've displayed both inner mastery and in some on some hands they've explained they displayed external control over that inner mastery. So the question that I want to ask you, my friend, before we so we can get this party started, what internal battles must a leader win before they effectively, and the key here is effectively, lead others? And I'm interested to see what the people in the chat are going to put in there as you're talking as well. The floor
Oh
is yours.
man, appreciate the intro, like what you said at the beginning, the whole leading up to this. What not the intro? What's it called?
Leading.
Uh, the lead in. Yeah. There's another word for it too that I was trying to think about. But I will say that here's how I'm going to start this. What internal battles must a leader win before they can effectively lead others? I will start by saying that in our heads, in our minds, I believe that there are always two. I don't want to say two people, but I'm gonna say two people, but it's almost like two perspectives or two different points, right? Coach mentioned we've been reading, we've been in the military, we've been certified at this, we've done these different things. So there's a lot of information in our brains, and that's part of the reason why we're here and trying to give some of this information back. Right, my head getting big enough, so I'm hoping if I can download some of it, maybe my head will shrink down a little bit, maybe my hair start growing or something like that. But I would say this: in our head, there are like two people who's always talking to us, and those two people determine, in most cases, what decisions that we make. So in our head, there is somebody that is strong in a lot of cases, and then there's somebody who's weak. Especially when it comes to our weaknesses. So the thing about our mind is our mind knows all of our weaknesses. So you can't really get away from it. Your mind knows if you got a thing for women. Your mind knows if you got a thing for men. Your mind knows if you got a thing for alcohol or porn, corn, whatever it may be. Your mind knows. So during those times and when those things come up, there's someone saying, hey, don't do it, and there may be someone saying, do it. Whoever's stronger, that's what decision you're going to make. So what I'm saying all of this for is this: you have to win the battle in your mind. If you cannot win the battle of your mind, you will have a hard time being an effective leader. You can be a leader, you can be promoted or put into that position as a leader, but that does not mean that you will be effective. That does not mean that all of your missions will get accomplished or even accomplished with a high percentage. It does not mean that I don't know. I don't know what I agree to go with this, but I just want to start right there because I think for me, you starts with winning the battle of the mind. Mindset coach.
Man, listen. I mean, I just had to pick up my pen and started writing when you started talking. And I'll be honest with you, where you went is very similar to what I was thinking, and I'm not surprised. I really
Mhm.
am not surprised at all because that's how synced we are. And as I was listening to you talk, I literally heard you talk about imposter syndrome without saying imposter syndrome. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? Like I think a lot of times,
Can we just do a show on that?
I think we did probably a few
We
months back.
talked about it.
We probably need to do an imposter syndrome over here as well.
Mm.
So I think that'll be a good idea. But I kind of break it into three categories. The battles that a leader must win before they can effectively lead others is the psychological battle, the mental battle, and the emotional battle, right? Because that's exactly what you was just saying. First and foremost, psychologically, I need to be in a space psychologically to where I'm not dependent upon you to make me feel safe psychologically. Now, I know a few weeks back we talked about psychological safety in the workplace, and that is a thing. But it also looks different when I come to work needing you to make me feel safe at work. That's a whole different, that's totally different. So I need to be in a space psychologically to where not only do I have a good understanding of like who I am, but I also need to have a good understanding that, that all of this stuff is working in its proper fashion. I don't need to be in a space to where I walk in the room and I automatically think Mr. Martin is thinking something bad about me. Mr. Martin don't like me because he didn't speak to me. You see what I'm saying? All of those things tend to work itself out back here. And then next thing you know, mentally, now from a mental perspective, how I'm processing information. Because I am processing information in such a way to where I'm not necessarily looking at the glasses halfway being full, I'm looking at the glass being halfway empty. So now from that perspective, it's like it doesn't matter what comes to the table. I am always looking at the negative side of things. I will process it that way, and then I will emotionalize it in real time to such a degree that I become like almost toxic in the environment. So as a leader, all of those things have to be intact because people are dependent upon you to have yourself together from a psychological perspective, from a mental perspective, and from an emotional perspective. Because at the end of the day, if you're not that, then you're going to literally have your people walking on eggshells all day long. You're going to have people in a stressful situation constantly all day because it doesn't really matter what's going on, what time of day. I need it right now. This is hot. This is hot. Everything is hot. Well, if everything is hot, then nothing is hot. So what we have to do is make sure that all of these things are operating in its right capacity. Let me kind of change gears like this. I think too many times in the space of leadership, like people are fearful to ask their boss a question about instructions that were given. There's nothing wrong with asking your boss a question for clarity about the instructions, especially if I know my Manning roster. And you know how we used to do it in the army. We had a troop to task. So a troop to task will let me know how many people I have in my formation a day and where everybody else is at. So if I only have 10 people based upon the 150 people that I originally started off with, and then you give me a tasking and that tasking calls for 30 people, I can't do it. I can give you some. I can put some on it, but I can't do it. So I think sometimes, too many times, especially this day and age, leaders, people in leadership position, they're fearful to ask their boss questions for clarity, or even say we don't have the manpower to do that because they're not psychologically stable at that particular point. They fear their boss just simply because they make more money than them. For what? That's a person just like you. So work on PME, psychological, mental, and emotional. And I think when you win those battles, then you can become an effective leader.
I do not disagree with any of that. One thing I want to add too is something that I personally had to deal with, and that was the internal battle that I had to deal with, and that was self doubt. You know, once I got promoted to E5, I ain't never been an E5 before. I didn't know what to do. When I got promoted to staff sergeant, I thought I knew what I was supposed to do, but I didn't. And then when I got promoted to sergeant first class, oh wow, that was totally different animal, way different than E5 and E6, and I didn't think internally that I was ready, but I wanted the promotion because I wanted the money. Just be honest. Most of us chase promotions for the money, not necessarily for the responsibility or the internal battles that come with being a leader, especially being an effective one. I would say that early on, I probably didn't have all of those things that you said. I think I developed them as I started maturing as a man and as a soldier and as a non-commissioned officer in the military. But I definitely say I struggle with probably a bunch of internal battles, and I know I did, and I know I probably was effective in certain areas. I think that most leaders are effective in certain areas. I think as you grow and as you mature as a leader, you become effective in more areas. So sometimes people say, "Oh man, he's ineffective." He may be ineffective because that may not be his area of expertise. But then you put him over here, and he doing his thing. So um, I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
No, I'm glad you did because I think what you share, most people experience. Like I knew for me that the Army promoted based upon potential,
Mhm.
but it wasn't that we would compare ourselves to the potential that the Army suggested that I had. We would
But
compare ourselves to our peers and see how they're behaving and things of that nature. So for me, I was a perfectionist. I put a lot of pressure on myself and I literally ran around like a chicken with my head cut off until I got my feet up under me. Go ahead, you're about to say something.
it don't matter though. Like I understand. Well, they promote on potential. However, when you throw that rocker on there, like it don't matter. Like, all right, Son Dwyer, you just got promoted today. Hey,
Mhm.
you going down to Bravo Company, gonna take over a platoon.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's like, so yeah, I get that we get promoted off potential.
Mhm. And
I
I'm
mean,
not,
yeah, that's true for everybody because the reality of it
yeah,
is until you've actually worn those stripes and done that job, even if you've done that job, you haven't done it with the authority that that next
yeah,
promotion actually gives you,
yeah.
So
And,
okay.
and that's what I was about to say. And that's why I
Yeah.
started off like what you articulate. I think everybody experienced. The issue is, well, not the issue. When I talked about PME, right? So again, psychological, mental, and emotional. Being unaware of, so I'll say like wanting to do a good job. I say it that way. Wanting to do a good job because that's really what I believe everybody wants to do after they get promoted. They want to do a good job.
Mhm.
Now, the issue is that in my mind, I'm trying to figure out what do a good job look like, and the environment is giving me a response based upon what my output is. And that environment could include my supervisor, it could include my employees, it could include a number of different things. And I'm receiving all this information. And the information that I'm receiving back in the environment may not necessarily line up with what I got in my head. And maybe the problem for me is not the environment, it's what I got in my head. Maybe I've set the bar too high for me for day one of the promotion. You see what I'm saying? So I think everybody goes through that initially until they get to the point of what I tend to call progressive maturity. Whenever a person gets promoted, they're going to be immature in that new promotion. Once they get their feet under them, once they relax a little bit, they start processing it and start, like we used to say in football, the game slows down for you. when this environment slows down for you, and then you can start taking them and taking everything in stride, and you can make decisions that are actually healthy for everybody, not just keeping yourself out of hot water. Then that's when you've relaxed. That's when you've matured in that position, and then that's when you don't put that kind of pressure on yourself. But that's why I believe the whole issue behind this particular question has to stem from PME, because if we don't win the PME battle, then we're trying to survive. We're
Yeah.
not necessarily taking care of the people. We're trying to survive at this point. So survival comes first, right? I'm gonna put my mask on first, then I can put your mask on, and
Then.
so that's
Yep.
that's how it actually works. So I'm
Mhm.
glad you said that, because you're absolutely right, which is a great way to get from putting my mask on, now peeing me. Now I got to put somebody else's mask on, right? Which takes us to point number two. The most
Mhm.
powerful leaders are servants. What does it mean to serve others without expecting anything in return? And how does this shift a leader's influence?
Mm. Man, have you ever been on social media and you see these people that'll go and do something, Habitat for Homes, or they'll go out and do something. They go serve food to the needy on Thanksgiving or something, and then they post a whole bunch of pictures bragging. And I'm not talking about the people, I'm not talking about everybody, but I know that some people are really doing it to get a response or a like or something like that. So I think um what it means to serve others is that you're doing it from a place of purpose, right? You're not doing it from a place for a like, for an applause, for a photo opportunity, or anything else. You're doing it for the purpose. And I think that, as a leader, that's kind of how you have to be. You know what I mean? Because it takes a lot to be an effective leader. And an effective leader is going to influence in a certain sense, because if the leader is stellar, and then those subordinates or the people up under them will rise. That's just kind of what I think. Yeah, I think it's more so about the purpose and not expecting, it's not for like a photo op or anything else. It's more so about the purpose.
Yeah, I like that. Um, I would start off by quoting something from our mentor, John Maxwell. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that's indicative of this particular scenario here. When a leader, or when someone serves someone else without expecting anything in return, that is a that is the act of elevating someone higher than yourself in that moment. That is an act of recognizing that someone has a need, and it is okay for me to give them or provide that need for them without having any expectation, just because at the core of it all there's something in me that screams, you're human, they're human, it's okay to help them without, you need to pay me back kind of like deal, right? And I'm only using that as an example. It shouldn't be a tit for tat thing. Like you see a lot of that out here after Hurricane Helene, right? You see a lot of people helping a lot of people, and I think it's really sad that in most cases it takes a disaster like this to where you see helping someone else as a norm.
Hmm.
But it's only a norm in situations like this to where it should be a norm every day of our life. This should be something that we see all the time. So when you see someone serving people, like you mentioned, serving a homeless, going to like some type of shelter and feeding, and just giving somebody something that they need. Or it doesn't necessarily have to be a thing of need. You know what I'm saying? It can be a thing of recognizing who they are and what they do, and what they're doing is for a higher calling or a higher purpose than what you can even understand. Um, I think it speaks to something, a power that's working behind the scenes, that is uh, that is much more profound than we could ever understand. And how does that shift a leader's influence? Well, again, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. To someone else, they believe, at least from a from a objective perspective, they believe that you care. And I think that's what every employee, every child, every spouse, every person in the community, I think that's really what people want. People want to know that someone else cares for them. Like, it's a very disheartening thing to imagine someone growing of age, you know, senior, and being in a house alone and no one there to hear them scream, or yell for help if something was to happen to them. That's a very disappointing image to have in your head. But I think that image, although it was very graphic on this end, is really what I see a lot when I look around in society, because everybody's focused on their own little thing. They're more concerned about themselves, them doing a good job, them looking good in front of their supervisor. If there's a thing, like, I use you for an example because what you said earlier, like, huge, humble person. You know what I mean? Very humble. I don't mind giving him the accolades, but I can appreciate the fact that he didn't want to say, "Hey, I thought of this." No, I'll tell it. You thought of it. You know what I'm saying? I give the credit to you, right? That's not what you see in society. I did that. I put that together. That was me. That was me, supervisor. Get in there. Yeah. Oh, that slide deck. I did that. I did a majority of that. I did a majority of that. Instead of we as a team did. It's very disheartening for people to, at any given point in time, want to be important. But once we change that around, just switch it a little bit. It's okay to be important. Just let somebody else deem you as being important. Instead of looking for somebody to say, "Hey, coach is important." Coach need to put forth the effort to be important in somebody's life. Give me something to appreciate you for. I remember we said that a while back. Give me something to appreciate you for. And I promise you, you ain't got a panda for me to appreciate you. I'm going to
Yeah.
appreciate you in private. I'm going to appreciate you abroad. Everybody going to know your name because you ain't got to say it. I'm screaming. I think that's the thing when it comes down to this right here. Serving others is what we were put on this earth to do. And when a leader focuses on climbing the corporate ladder, I'm not saying that you won't climb the corporate ladder. I just say don't make that your main focus. Focus on empowering your subordinates, putting them in positions to where they can be the best versions of themselves. And then when you're in the board meetings, when you're sitting in front of, said individual, let me recognize first and foremost before we move forward. I want y'all to understand none of this could have been possible if it wasn't for Mr. Martin over there. So I want to give a shout out to Mr. Martin before we get, because he worked really hard on this project, and I seen him do it with my own eyes. So I think when we do stuff like that, it speaks volumes to the person who's actually listening.
Yeah. I agree. And I think it's not that people expect it, but it's just like it's just good to know that somebody recognized my hard work. I don't need it, but it's like, man, I'm not just a paycheck. They're not just taking me for granted. You know what I mean? So I definitely get that. Um, One thing I wanted to add to it, I think, to this question, especially the end part of it, how does it shift a leader's influence? I think it shifts the leader's influence when you serve others without expecting anything. When when it shifts from just being a person of authority to a person of influence. So 'cause I think initially when you're put in that position, you get newly get promoted, say, all right, Sergeant First Class Dwyer, this is where you're gonna be, this your platoon. Oh, they know you as this brand new Sergeant First Class. They know you as a person that is in a position of authority over top of them. Over time, it shifts to influence. It's not necessarily influence. Most of the time, it's not influence. First of all, it's usually just I'm doing what the boss said to do. So I think that's what I wanted to add to this, that I started thinking about a little bit more, right before you started talking and a little bit while you was talking. So I was still paying attention, but I was still gathering an extra thought too.
No, you're good, man. You're good. And I think every leader wants to be remembered when they're long and gone, right? Um, the company continues on when you retire. Um, the fact that the children, they move on, they grow up, they become
Yep.
adults, move out the house, they go have their own life. Um, I think everybody wants to be remembered, but I think the key to being remembering, the key to being remembered is giving people something to remember. I think a lot of times what we do is we in our minds, we're like, oh, I gave Mr. Martin this book. He should be able to remember the day I gave this book. This book, you know what I'm saying? This book $10. You know what I'm saying? This book meant something. It probably meant something to me, but I gave it to him. It should have meant something. Did he even want the book, first of all?
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? Did I do a little something to show him that I appreciate it? Did I get it engraved with his name on it? And I'm just talking about this book, obviously, because it's in my hand. But did I get it engraved with his name on it? Did I put a special, cover on it? Something that makes it last longer, something to show him that I appreciate him, things of that nature. It's kind of like what the Army used to do, right? When we were PCS, they would give us these little things, these plaques,
Trinkets.
trinkets. Yeah, absolutely. It's like just like Coach got all those medals on the wall back there,
Got
right?
one right there.
Yeah, there you go.
That's from
And
Korea.
and I bet you there's a story that goes along with each and every last one of them.
I met Shell in Korea.
See, and so I say that because the best memories that we have some type of emotional affiliation with it. So if a leader wants to be remembered, not that you're doing it to be remembered, but if you want to be impactful in a person's life, then do something that touched them, right? Do something for them that they'll never forget. You know what I'm saying? Go the extra mile to help them get something that they were really striving for. Be a part of their own development plan. Like when you're doing your, what do you call it? Your, oh man, your performance, not performance evaluation. When you're establishing your performance measures, have them put a performance measure in there for themselves personally. And then now you become a accountability partner for that particular performance measure as well. So it's not just I'm focusing on what have you done for the company lately, but are you doing this thing? You haven't started yet? Okay, how can I help? What do I need to do to help you get this thing started and off and going? And I think that's the thing. Because now at that point, that subordinate like, man, you really care about me doing this thing, right? You said you wanted to do it. So if you want to do it, I want to help you do it. Now, and in the end, I want to celebrate with you when you get it. So I think this is a very important one, and I know we got a little long winded on it, but I think it's that significance because if leaders can just get this one thing right here right now, mind you, in order to get this one right, you got to get PME right.
Yep.
You can't do this when you're worried about self. If I'm constantly focused on self, I, I mean, even if I'm doing something for somebody else, I'm doing it for the wrong reason because I want you to appreciate me as a leader. No, that's still the wrong reason. It has to
Yep.
be all about them. So, speaking of that, your leadership
Mm.
legacy is defined by how you handle failure, not success. And I think this one is another good one as well. In what ways can a leader use personal failures to inspire and strengthen their followers?
Um, the thing about personal failures is it shows that we're not perfect, right? There's room for improvement. Everybody does it. Like, it's okay. Certain things. Now, it's not okay to continue to fail, you know, but it's okay to have failures and then learn from them. Like you started talking about the show in the beginning, talking about all the books and all those different things. and then now, kind of sort of, giving those learn these certain things and then kind of give that information back, with give back with the lesson pulled out and give the lesson back, so and that's kind of how I'm looking at this right now, because we all fail. Like there ain't nobody, there's only one there's only one person who's never failed to ever walk this earth. And that ain't nobody that we actually can talk to. Your mama failed. Yep, she messed up. Your daddy didn't fail. He didn't messed up before. You know what I mean? That's okay. You know what I'm saying? It is okay. It is okay to fail. Now, let's be careful. All failures don't necessarily need to be talked about. Selective about what you choose to share when it comes to your personal failures. I think this kind of goes into a little bit about being vulnerable. You know, um, I look at it like this. I'm everybody knows if you've been on here, some people know that I'm training for a marathon right now. So I'm running a marathon next month. And I have a whole bunch of running that I have to do. Well, life has been lifing, and I have dug down into my pocket and my bag of tricks, and I found a whole bunch of excuses over the last 2 weeks of why not to run. Right. But before then, I was on it and I was doing my thing. And, I had a purpose and I still do. But there were some times that I honestly failed at doing what I knew I was supposed to do. I made an excuse. I said, I'm not going to do it today, yada, yada, yada. Personal failure. I took accountability for it. I know I did it. But I'm also have used that at the same time. I think that that can inspire somebody once I complete this marathon, right? You say, yes, I had some hard days. Some days I did not want to get up. Some days I didn't get up. Some days I hit the snooze button. Some days I made an excuse and said that it was too wet outside and I am not going to run. However, once November 16th rolls around here and that marathon is complete, I can inspire myself. And that same inspiration can be used and shared with others and help strengthen them, their journey. Yes, I'm using the marathon, but that's just an analogy for anything that we go through in life. You know, whether it's our marriage, our relationship, there's personal failures that go in our relationship. There's sometimes we don't always get it right with people. There's some times that, not us, but there's sometimes that some people have said some negative things to someone in a relationship. So I just think, man, to say all of this, man, everybody fails. It is okay to fail, but it is not okay to stay down. You know, you can learn a lot from other people's failures. One thing you learn, and this was somebody told me a long time ago. He was like, man, one thing I learned about married people, he said, if I can learn from married folk what they go through, then when I get married, then I know not to do these certain things in my marriage.
Listen, man, I love how you started off just now. I think it's important for us to understand that failure is a part of the developmental process. But if I'm focused on myself and I have a need to look good, I have a need to be important, I have a need to be heard, I have a need to be seen. Like all of this self centered, egotistical way of being, it kind of stands in the way and it makes it very difficult for me to move myself out of the way for the sake of my followers. There are some lessons that we will learn in life, in all aspects of the version of life that you're living. You mentioned, you know, marriage. I talked fatherhood initially. I think one of the most profound conversations that I can have with my sons is to help them understand that I made several mistakes as a man. And I don't ever want them to compare themselves to the perfect model of who I am that they have in their head. So my goal is to destroy the perfect model so that they can see the authentic version of who I am. I want to help them not make the mistakes that I made so that they can learn from those lessons. The only way you can get to that point is to get to the point to where you have done the PME. And it's not, and I don't want to give the impression that PME is a one-time thing, I'm done, I'm good. No, PME is a constant thing. You are constantly doing that thing over and over again, right? You're constantly analyzing your psychological state, you're constantly analyzing your mental state, and you're constantly analyzing your emotional state. And then the thing that you need to do is teach them PME as well. Well, newsflash, the same way I can do that as a father is the exact same way I can do that as a leader as well. Because sometimes you have to realize that some employees, like I kind of tell this to the officers when I teach, you're going to have some people in your formation, and this may be the first time that anybody spoke anything positive to them in their life. They may come from an environment to where all they see is negativity. All they see is like the people that they know being incarcerated, things of that nature. They're stuck in this thing called survival, and day in and day out, that's all they do is survive. But then they decide to change their life, raise their right hand and said, I do. And then they ship off to the military. Next thing you know, they're standing in your formation and looking at you as their leader. And the thing that they're looking at is, man, you know what? I want to be a lieutenant, just like, the consistency coach. I want to be a captain, just like the consistency coach. Captain consistency. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I want to do that. But that's the model of leadership that they have in their head. You have to help them to understand that that model that they have in their head is a model. Underneath this uniform is a human being just like you. I put my pants on just like you. I eat I may not eat like you. You know what I'm saying? It all depends where you're from, right? But I eat, I consume food just like you. There is nothing special about me. So we don't allow anybody else to keep us up on their mountaintop. We come off the mountaintop so that we can look them eye to eye. And then we help them to understand that, man, when I was in your shoes, I did the exact same thing. In fact, I probably did worse than what you're doing right now. So don't be so hard on yourself. Give yourself some grace. Recognize that you have the ability to look back over this situation and identify yourself in that situation. And then ask yourself the question, if you could go back and do it again, what would you do differently? Oh man, if I could do it again, I would do this differently, do this. That's a lesson. So take that lesson, which you say that you would do differently, ask yourself why you would do it differently, and then use that as a springboard going forward, because that situation will come again. And it mandates that you be the new person that you just created yourself to be after reflecting on that. See, that's the key about learning from our mistakes. That's the key of failure being part of the developmental process. If we never allow that failure to be a part of the development, then it's just simply that failure. And I know a lot of people tend to say, well, it's never failure until until you quit and give up. No, I go a step further. If I never go back and analyze my behavior when I did it the first time, I never learned the lesson that I was supposed to learn. And if I fail to learn the lesson when it comes back around, I'm gonna end up doing the exact same thing over and over again. If you think I'm joking, just look at some of these relationships. You got people in and out of relationships constantly. Why? Because they're never look at their own behavior. They're always talking about somebody else. So that's the thing. That's the thing that leaders do for the people that follow them. They pour into them at the level that they are as a leader, not allowing them to do the same things, but you pour the knowledge into them early so that they can progress at a faster rate. That's just kind of like my response to this, because I think it's that important. I think it's that significant. And I think from a cultural perspective, I think we lack that a lot.
Mm,
Really do.
yeah. I like it, man. I ain't adding nothing to that. I'm leaving that one alone. I'm good. I'm
Well,
good.
you mentioned vulnerability. You
Yeah.
mentioned vulnerability. And so that's point number 4. Point number 4 is true leadership requires. It didn't say it was optional. It didn't say if you feel like it. It said it requires vulnerability, not just strength. So it's not absence of strength, right? It has to be a balance of both. So, in your opinion, fine sir, why is
Fine, sir.
vulnerability so crucial for building authentic relationships in relationship?
All right. So I'm gonna start by using this and then sprinkling in a little bit of that last question when we start talking about um, um, personal failures to inspire and strengthen their followers. So, long time ago, there was this young man who joined the military. He ended up getting in trouble. He got busted from E2. He got busted from E3. He made E4, made E5, got busted from E5, went on to have a successful career, promoted to E7, had some special schools, earned some degrees, yada, yada, yada. That person is none other than the consistency coach, right? That story for some people can be a great inspiration. However, at some point I had to be very vulnerable I was very vulnerable when I was telling that story. Sometimes a long time ago when I was in the military, because you don't really want everybody to know that you got demoted from E5, because the first thing they ask you is, why did you get demoted? And then now you have to either tell them or not tell them the reason why. And maybe there's something very personal and I don't want to share, so bringing up your failures and being vulnerable, um what it can do is can help create an authentic relationship. So now I have a soldier who, or a subordinate who got in trouble. And he stepped on it. He did something he wasn't supposed to do, even though every Friday night we give him safety brief. Brother, don't go out there, don't drink drive. If you're going to do something, wrap it up. Don't take no drugs. Well, bro went out there, decided he went to a rave and he had a party, and he came back and he smoked something he wasn't supposed to. And next thing you know, he got in trouble. Hey, brother, look, it ain't the end of the world. You got to take this punishment. You got to keep on moving. But SARS, look, bro, when you being vulnerable and you tell your soldiers, hey, look, man, it ain't the end of the world. I done been through some stuff too. You know what I mean? And I made it. You know what I'm saying? I still got promoted to E6. I still got promoted to E7. So I think that sometimes now what I have done is I've created a connection with this person. I let them know, hey, I'm human too. I'm real too. Just because I'm in a position of authority to you, I have to go through and had to go through the same troubles and obstacles that you had when I lived in the barracks. I had the same temptations you had when I lived in the barracks. I wanted to go to parties. I wanted to hang out with my boys and do stuff too. However, I wasn't able to do that. I did other stuff to get in trouble. I was a knucklehead in other spaces. But little guy, soldier, subordinate, team member, whoever you are, you can bounce back from that. So I just think, when you can be vulnerable about certain things, I think it can help build an authentic relationship, because now they can see sometimes themselves in you. They understand, or they can see, or at least have an example of a blueprint of someone who has been through turmoil or got in trouble or has had some issues in the past and still was able to bounce back and move forward.
Man, that was good. That was really good. I like to look at this one as understanding what vulnerability is, and then I think that kind of make the
Ooh, yeah, that part.
yeah, it kind of makes it come to life about why it's so crucial in building authentic relationships, and then we'll highlight the notion of authentic relationships, because I think we're so accustomed to relationships being superficial. Vulnerability is a person's ability to remove the mask. It is their ability to not put the facade on in front of you. It's their ability to come from behind the podium so you can see the fullness of who they are. They no longer have the shame that accompanies the notion of, well, I want you to see me in a particular light, right? That's not their concern. They're not worried about what thoughts are going in your head about them because they have done the necessary PME that they need to do. Vulnerability shows that you are willing to fall on your sword for somebody else's sake. It's not all about me. It's not the self-centered approach to living. It's recognizing that the purpose of my life is for serving, to serve you, to do this. And so we'll sacrifice the little bit of humiliation that may happen in real time from a person who is not psychologically, mentally, or emotionally stable. We will sacrifice that little bit of humiliation in real time so that they can get the point, even if they haven't gotten it yet. Because trust me, at some point in time when we were younger, we probably snickered, when somebody was trying to be vulnerable with us. And then when they kind of brought that information full circle, we was a little embarrassed that we laughed, right? So that's what vulnerability is all about. Vulnerability by itself is strength. Right? And I kind of want to go back to this because I know a lot of time people view vulnerability as weakness, but it's not. It's the other side of strength. We look at strength as, young man going to the gym and bench pressing 300 pounds, strongman competition, standing up in the face of adversity, taking a bull by the horns, all kinds of stuff like that. But how strong does it take for you to bear it all and let everybody understand? I didn't have my dad when I was growing up. You see what I'm saying? That's vulnerability. Being that transparent to where you're not necessarily worried about a person looking at you sideways. You just want them to understand. I too understand your struggles. You know what I'm saying? So it's stuff like that. Well, that opens the door for authentic relationships to exist. Because the other side of it is that you're still hiding behind the podium. You're still wearing the mask. You still got the suit of armor on because you're afraid for them to see the frail body that's inside the suit of armor. And then you want a person to be in a relationship with that. But you have not exposed yourself to them yet. You only gave them a portion of yourself. And so, as a father, as a leader, as a community leader, as a person who advocates for other people, you have to get to the point to where you are vulnerable so that they can understand like some of the struggles that you're going through, we go through them too. It's not just you. We have not arrived. As they used to say back in the days, our ship haven't came in yet. No, we're living in this world just like you. Some of your struggles you've experienced, we've experienced as well. We may have found a way. It's not a way out. I don't want to. I hate using that term because it's like, oh, we made it to paradise. No, paradise don't come into the afterlife. When we get to the point of recognizing the importance of vulnerability and becoming vulnerable and practicing that because we have done the necessary PME, then authentic relationship is available. We don't necessarily have to pester and whine and complain and say, oh, Mr. Martin don't like me. Well, Mr. Martin don't like you because you probably have not yet learned to be transparent and vulnerable with him. He sees in the midst of him talking to you on a daily basis, in the midst of him coaching you, you still kind of hide behind the mask. I don't want to bring out no props, but you still kind of hide behind the mask. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Get from behind the mask. Be your authentic self. Be honest with yourself first. Once you do that, then you can become honest with everybody else. Leaders, you're not Superman. You're not Superwoman. Newsflash, none of your subordinates see you that way anyway. So stop trying to be that. That's part of the disconnect between you and your subordinates. Fathers, same thing. I know you want to be Superman to those kids. I get that. But you're not. You're just a man who just happened to be a father. And being a father is an honor. Mothers, same thing. We see you as a superwoman because of all you do. But guess what? You don't have to be superwoman. Be honest. Be vulnerable. Be transparent. I think people appreciate that even more because relationships at that point have a very prolific meaning in the lives of others.
Yeah, man. You were spot on with all of that stuff. The only thing I just wanted to add to is I think vulnerability, it also helps build trust. And I think trust is something that's very important in relationships, and especially when there's a leadership. When we're speaking about leadership, like if you don't trust your boss, I mean, everybody, most of us have been there. You know how it is when you got that boss that you don't trust, and then you know how it is when you have that boss that you do trust, and for most of us, especially, that has grays and silvers and stuff like that in our face, most of us have been on both sides of that coin, so I just wanted to add in that vulnerability helps create that trust that you're going to need for that authentic relationship.
Absolutely. Platinum, by the way. Platinum.
Platinum, yeah, 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 platinum,
We platinum.
platinum.
Yeah, we platinum now. Platinum. All right. Last question. I'm
Last
sorry,
one.
the last point. Holistic leadership focuses on the collective well being, not personal gain. And I think holistic leadership is an awesome talking point as well. So, what are the consequences of leadership that prioritizes personal gain over communal or societal well being?
Um, I would just start off by saying that I think sometimes it can cause division. You know, if you look at a leadership, let's look at the family, right? Let's look at the family, the old school family, the traditional family where there's excuse me, the man is the head of the house, he's the leader of the house, the wife is there, and then there's a couple of kids and a dog in the house or whatever like that, right? Once we see it all the time when we see men in social media, especially with entertainers, and you come across it on TV. You hear stories about people that where you hear the man of the house, or have focused a whole bunch on his career. Yeah, he gave his wife, they went to the movies twice a year, and they did a mini vacation for 2 days, but he was working 14, 16 hours a day. He's missing out. He was prioritizing, you know, and focused on his personal gain over the communal or societal. And in this case, I'm speaking about the rest of his family, as being that communal societal portion of this. So, and I think that that's why sometimes you have relationships that end in divorce. So I think that's a huge consequence of leadership that prioritizes personal gain. I think that it affects the relationships of the people that are in the communal or the society or the family. I think that it can create a space where there's not a lot of trust. When you have somebody in a relationship and all that they do is focus on their self, and for this, I know we're talking about the leader, but regardless of where you're at in that relationship of that family or job or whatever, like we all know somebody who they only focus on themselves. They're selfish, especially if you have a selfish leader. I've worked for leaders before, and the only thing they wanted to do was well, I will start by saying this. In the military, at some point when I was in, the way they did promotions were, if you was an officer, then the officer above them, they could only give like one of five, I think, like above the best, right? And then everybody else was just pretty much success or good, right? So of those five people, only one could be the top dog. Whereas enlisted, me and coach in the same platoon, we have 10 of us. We all can get among the best, where over there, it wasn't like that. So what would happen, at least what we thought, was that we always had those commanders that sign us up for everything because they was like, I'm trying to be the number one. I want to be the top dog. I want to get that rating. So now every time there's a field problem, oh, well, we got it. Hey, we need somebody to do this. Oh, we got it. Always volunteering for stuff. And we had to eat all of that stuff. We're the ones working late, working in the cold, working in all these different types of things because that one leader is focused on their personal gain over everybody else. So that's my little story to throw in with this question right here.
No,
I
that's
ain't
good.
like them guys.
No, that's good because yeah, I remember those days. I
Yeah,
remember days feeling like, I don't know, man, why are we doing this? It's
yeah.
constantly we being volunteer for stuff.
You like, man, Bravo Company don't ever do nothing. Like, well, how
Nothing.
come we always get called to go to the
Yeah.
field? Them
Yeah.
jokers don't do nothing. PT scores suck. Weapons qualification suck. Them jokers red. Then you realize they got a crappy commander that don't care. You know what I mean?
To that point, the consequences of that is that you have your subordinate leaders looking at you sideways because at the end of the day, they don't think you're a part of the team. They don't think
Yep.
you care about the team in its entirety. They think you only care about yourself, and you will say, and they believe that you will sacrifice the team for your own gain, as
Yep.
opposed to you as a leader sacrificing yourself for the team. And not to belabor an awesomely told story, I just wanted to close the loop on the consequences based upon the story that you had because I think that was perfect. And I think when we look at that, I don't care who you are. You can be a parent, you could be a spouse, you could be a leader of an organization. It's the same. When it's all about you, then the team, whether it's the family, whether it's the partner, or whether it's the team at work, they really do get to the point of feeling like you will sacrifice them for yourself as opposed to
Mhm.
sacrificing yourself for the team. So that's just
Yep.
it. So that being said, man, let's kind of get into some of these true false because
True false.
you
True
know
fizzle.
we're gonna get after them. And one of these days, we got to get this Jeopardy thing going. We're gonna touch
Mm.
base on that because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm ready to do that. All right, true false. A leader's ability to control others is more important than their ability to control themselves.
Man.
Stop playing,
My
man. We know you
man,
waiting on the chat. Cut it out.
bruh. My initial response was true. But then I think I was thinking about this the only true false question I read, and I got stuck thinking about the other side of it.
Hmm.
And then I didn't read the rest of them.
Right.
And I think I'd had a point to justifying the false. And I think I might have put it based in a situation.
Sure.
Um in the military, but it still may I think that it may end up coming back to controlling the leader's ability anyway. But let me go on it anyway. So I think that, if we look at the military, um we've had some crappy leaders.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just gonna go with true. I can't my thought won't come to me.
I got you.
But
I
so
got
I'm gonna go with true. But I think there's a false in there somewhere. But I can't confirm or deny it. So I'm just gonna stick with true, my final answer. I wonder what the chat got.
Well, yeah, I think I kind of know where they're going with it. So the answer to this question is false, um, because it goes back
Oh
to
yeah, that's what I meant. False.
yeah. I knew.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. I meant false. Yeah, yeah, yeah. False. Final answer.
Self mastery is more important, but the key to this question is more important. And there's another word in there as well that kind of throws it off, and that other word is control. We can't even control ourselves. We regulate ourselves. So that's kind of like one of those things. But anyway, the answer is false. So if you
In
got
the
false,
chat probably looking at me all funny. I
no,
miss
they
both.
know. They know you be playing.
Hey, bro, what's wrong with Unc today?
They know you be playing most of the time.
Yeah.
All right. Leaders who admit their vulnerabilities will lose the respect and trust of their followers. True or false? Leaders who admit their vulnerabilities will lose the respect and trust of their followers. And then I have one thing I wanted to add. I forgot to say earlier.
Okay. Well,
I'll tell you, I can add it while they type.
add it.
Um, the thing I forgot to add is what vulnerability is not. Vulnerability is not talking about what you did last night to your subordinates.
Yep.
Vulnerability is not sharing your love life with your closest subordinate because you view them as a friend as opposed to them being your subordinate. That is 100% the way of losing respect for somebody you're supposed to be a supervisor with.
Mm,
I've seen
that's
that
a
happen
true
several times
statement.
in the army.
Yep. So I will say that if we have to go with true or false, I'm gonna say false. However, comma, we'll lose. I can't control all of them.
Right,
I can't speak absolutes when it comes to this. So, but
right.
I think in general, The answer would be false.
There you go. Very good. And you're right, because when I was a young PFC, private first
Mhm.
class, my best friend was a Sergeant E5. And we would hang out and, go to the club, whatever the case may be. But by the time we get back to work that following Monday, when he talked to me, I'm standing at parade rest. So there
Yeah.
are some people who are they are mature enough to handle it. But I, as a leader, do not take that risk.
Yeah. Same.
All right. The most effective leaders are those who prioritize their personal success and advancement over the collective good. True or false? The most effective leaders are those who prioritize their personal success and advancement over the collective good.
The answer is false. I
Outstanding.
will say it is extremely exciting when what you prioritize lines up with the advancement and the success of the collective good. It is a good feeling. It is a good thing.
And as a reminder to everybody, that is called holistic leadership. Holistic leadership is when you focus on the collective good. Okay. Moving on. Failure is a sign that a leader is not cut out for leadership.
True. 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 That Joker can't pass APFT. He do not to be need to be in charge of nobody's formation.
Well, I mean, according to Army doctrine, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
But false. Yeah, that's just a failure in one area. It's like this guy could be a stellar leader. He just may not have discipline. He
Absolutely.
may be ineffective in one or a couple of areas of their leadership. It doesn't mean that you throw out the whole NCO, you know,
Absolutely.
or the whole leader.
All right. Last true false. In today's fast-paced world, of non-contiguous working environments, AI, and automation, servant leadership is an outdated approach, while holistic leadership is more current. True or false? In today's fast-paced world of non-contiguous working environments, AI, and automation, servant leadership is an outdated approach, while holistic leadership is more current. True or false?
You read it twice, so they should be typing in right now. So I'm gonna chime in. I think false. I don't think it's an outdated approach at all. I think if anything, probably collabing them and working together is probably get a better outcome. We talk about our own personal leadership style, especially when we was in the military. You take a little bit of this, a little bit of Dwayne, a little bit of Gaddy, a little bit of Roland, a little bit of Martin. Now you got, you take the good part. You got a pretty darn good leadership there. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna say false.
Spot on. Exactly what you said. There's no need to elaborate on what was perfectly said.
No need.
No need. So, that being said, that takes us to the coach's choice. I love it.
Mm.
Alex is a team leader in a community based organization dedicated to serving underprivileged youth. Recently, the organization was faced with a significant budget cut, causing stress and uncertainty among the team. Alex, who has always been viewed as a strong and confident leader, decided not to share their concerns about the budget with the team, fearing it would demoralize them. Instead, Alex worked late nights to come up with a solution on their own, but over time, the team noticed Alex becoming distant, stressed, and unapproachable. During a team meeting, a few members expressed their frustration about feeling left in the dark regarding important organizational decisions. One team member asked, "Why haven't we been a part of the solution finding process?" Alex, overwhelmed by the question, brushed it off and reassured them that everything was under control. But it was clear that trust had been shaken. Question number one: what was the primary leadership mistake Alex made? A, not working late enough to find a solution. B, failing to involve the team in the problem solving process. C, reassuring the team everything was fine. And D, delegating tasks to the team members?
Mm. Duh, not working late enough. If that joker one, I had an officer one time told me that if I ain't working on a Sunday, then I was wrong.
Mm,
I'm just
mm,
like
mm.
the commander. I'm just like, sheesh. It's like, bro, and he even said that he's like, you know what? I probably don't have the relationship with my wife and my daughters I should, but um, if I need to call Chief Hines again because he was with me. But definitely not a man. What was the primary leadership mistake? B.
Final answer?
Only because that's the only option. So yeah, final answer.
Correct answer B. Failing to involve the team in the problem solving process. Alex missed the opportunity to build trust and engagement by not being transparent about the challenges and involving the team in finding solutions. Number two, what effect did Alex's stress and distance likely have on the team? Increase productivity among team members. Strengthen the team's trust in Alex. C. Created uncertainty and weakness. Created uncertainty and weakened trust in Alex's leadership. And D. Inspired the team to take more initiative independently.
A B C Charlie all day. C
Okay.
created uncertainty and weakness and weakened trust in Alex's leadership.
Survey says C.
C it is,
All
folks.
right. Alex's visible stress and emotional distance likely created an atmosphere of uncertainty, making the team feel disconnected and excluded, thereby undermining their trust. I think this might be the last question. How could Alex have demonstrated vulnerability in this situation to build trust? A, by reassuring the team that everything was under control, which is what he did. B, by asking the team to take over all the decision making, which is probably what he should have done. C, by openly sharing the challenges of the budget cuts and involving the team in finding a solution. And D, by taking a week off to handle stress independently. Yes.
Or E, taking a week off to play Call of Duty. That's what
Exactly.
I do. Man. It's C, Charlie, by openly sharing the challenges of the budget cuts and involving the team in finding solutions. They must be like a real team. He just must be like a, you know what I mean? Like just a placeholder type leader.
Oh, well, you'll be surprised.
Be
I mean,
surprised.
I'm trying to be funny. Some people get promoted so fast, but they never actually
Yeah.
get some of the necessary training that they're supposed to get.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to things other than business as usual, again, if I'm the leader, I don't necessarily feel like I'm equipped. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily, I don't want my team looking at me bad. So I'm gonna try to do it all myself.
Yep.
Happens more than we think.
Get that. That probably was me at some point.
Yeah, man. All right. That being said, that takes us to this awesome time here. You've been going first a lot. I'm going first now.
All right. All right.
All right. So for me, my actionable advice this time is all about PME. I stress PME because I think PME is important, and PME is where we need to start. Psychological, emotional. Psychological, mental, and emotional. We need to do an inventory of where we are in all three areas. Where are you psychologically? Where are you emotionally? And where are you mentally? I would say take a notebook. Have a notebook with you everywhere you go. Whenever you feel a particular type of way emotionally, write it down. Write down the situation that caused you to feel it and then ask yourself why. Write that down as well. We kind of went over something like this previously, but I think it's important for us to do this again now. Write down the PME as it pertains to that situation, right? Write down how you feel, write down the situation. What is it about the situation that made you feel that way? And how would you tie it psychologically? In other words, what is the underlining belief system that caused you to think about that situation in the way that you did and actually drove the feeling behind it? If you're paying attention to what I'm saying, this actually goes all the way back to our conversation about emotions and bring that into this play in this conversation now. So again, PME, right? Psychologically, mentally, and emotionally. And every time you encounter a situation that doesn't sit well with you, then write it down and then understand what it is so that you can identify the primary belief system that made you feel the way you did in relation to it. This is not something I'm going to put a timeline on. I'm not going to say over the next week. I'm not even going to say over the next month. I think this is something that you can do from this point going forward, even all the way up to the day that you leave and go home to glory. I think this is a great technique. And for me, that is my actual advice.
My actual advice is to think about, now this is for the non-leaders or people who may inspire to be leaders. I want you to write down two things that you did not that or that you do not know about leadership, right? So that means you need to go and figure out, because everybody can tell you all the good things about leadership. Oh, it's like this, and yeah, you're gonna get extra money, you're gonna get extra pay, and you're gonna be the boss, and then you can take lunch when you want to. They're gonna tell you all these glamorous things. You're gonna be in meetings all day, you don't have to be on the line working outside, yada yada yada. But for me, I'm gonna share with you two things that I didn't know before I became the leader. And the first thing is responsibility. One of the things that comes with being a leader is now you have an extra set of responsibility. When you were a subordinate, you didn't have those responsibilities. Now that you are a leader, you're in charge of someone, you have a certain level of responsibility that now that even though things are not your fault, you are still responsible for them. So that's one is responsibility. The next thing is the power shift that comes from being in a leadership position. Coach mentioned earlier that he had a friend that was a higher rank than him. That was an NCO and he was an E3. You know, I'm saying that, sometimes when you get promoted, especially when you're with peers or you used to be a peer, there may be some things that different. Now that you have the power, you have the power. So some people abuse that power, you know. So, and the other side of that is now you may be looked at differently amongst people who are your peers. Oh, but look at him. Who he think he better than somebody. She thinks she better than somebody because she got promoted. So just understand that, two things I want to share with you that you may not know about being a leader until you get into a leadership position is that one, you're going to have a certain level of responsibility that's going to change once you're in that position. And two, there's going to be a dynamic power shift. So again, what I want you to do is go and do some research, read some articles, watch some YouTube or whatever it is you want to do, and look at something or figure out two things about being a leader that you did not know or that you do not currently know.
Man, look here. That was so good. I was over here taking notes myself. Um, listen, as always, man, I thank you. You add such great value during these conversations. And I wanted to make sure I acknowledge that here on the platform, not just backstage. But likewise, we also want to thank everybody in the chats because you guys add such value to our conversations. You give us energy, and that energy is greatly appreciated. You add such
Facts.
value to our conversation. So, anything you wanted to add, bro?
Now I'm gonna double down on that, man. I really appreciate you and I really appreciate the chat, man. Like you said, they do bring that energy sometimes. Sometimes, let's be honest, man, we don't always want to record. We don't always want to show. We do. However, we also have other things that we could be doing, but we actually enjoy being here. But sometimes, we've had long days at work and, we have family issues, or I mean, we go through, like you said, we hear some vulnerability and some transparency. We go through the same things that everybody else go through. We are not exempt because we are standing up here in front of a camera and a microphone.
Yeah.
We're not exempt. So we understand that, just like you guys, sometimes, you don't always want to show up, but you show up. I mean, I think for the most part, everybody shows up because they want to, but we also understand that everybody has lives outside of this, so I really appreciate everybody coming here because, on a Tuesday night at 7 p.m., it's a lot of other stuff to be doing. People are winding down for the night, not coming over here. Most people looking to learn something.
Yeah.
We've been working hard all day, so. But again, I want to thank them for staying with us. We went over 22 minutes so far, but it is what it is. Thank y'all for allowing us these extra 22 minutes.
Yeah. And a special thanks to those people who are helping.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And Unc knows, like, it's a lot of the stuff behind the scenes. Like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so for those of you who are helping out, man, I mean, we greatly appreciate that. So thank
Yeah.
you, thank you, thank you. So enough of that mushy stuff. That being
Yep.
said, listen, you guys continue to be the awesome individuals that you are. We pray that this information helps you moving forward. And that being said, have a great rest of your evening and let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else.
Peace.